Greetings, gaming historians, and welcome to Lord of Lore, where we break down the lore and history of our favorite video games and fantasies. And today, we're returning to the world of Dragon's Dogma to discuss a key element of the game's world, and that is the power of will. Separating the world from chaos, separating heroes from men, and separating mortals from gods, will is the great power that lies behind the Dragon's Dogma, and it is this power that sets every Arisen on their journey. However, what exactly is will in the world of Dragon's Dogma, and how does it affect the game's unique cosmology? Now, fair warning, there are spoilers ahead. Let's discuss. Before we begin exploring will in Dragon's Dogma 2, we must first recall the foundation of the game's world as shown by the first game. As players who have finished Dragon's Dogma 1 have learned, the cycle of Dragon and Arisen is in fact a test of will from the Seneschal, a godlike being responsible for overseeing the world and creating its denizens. The physical world is deemed naught but an illusion. The citizens are beings crafted by the Seneschal and given a spark of will, and the pawns are simply beings yet to receive this spark of will. Instead, they are drawn to the ever-growing willpower of the Arisen, and in rare cases known as a bestowal of spirit, pawns may be gifted their own will through the Arisen's efforts, as can be seen in the case of Selene and the protagonist's main pawn in the true ending. However, the Seneschals soon tire of their endless existence, and through the test of the dragons, which are failed Arisens, the Seneschal seeks a worthy replacement to kill them and take the seat of creation by conjuring a special weapon known as the God's Bane, forged from their own spirit. And while this may seem trivial, let's take a close look at the rift and powers that the Seneschal has. The world of the rift is a dull gray void, but it is changed to a glowing blue light whenever the Seneschal or rift-related powers are used. Though our hero in the first game succeeds in defeating both the dragon and the Seneschal, they too sense the misery of an inescapable, eternal destiny, choosing instead to slay themselves with the God's Bane. The ending of Dragon's Dogma 1 was a bittersweet but vague ending. Had we truly ended the cycle, would there be freedom for the next generations? Now, some of you may be wondering, what does any of this have to do with the second game? According to the lore, there are countless parallel worlds within the Rift, and isn't the world of Dragon's Dogma 2 set in its own universe? Well, yes and no. While we can't entirely dismiss the fact that 2's world is its own, take a really good look at the Seafloor Temple. As many of you have already guessed, the temple is an almost perfect replica of the Duke's Castle in Gran Soren, meaning that this game's world is connected to the one that came before. So what does this mean? To answer this question and to tie it all back into the power of will, we'll have to take a look at two key figures, the Mad Sovereign Rothos and the mysterious Pathfinder. At the start of Dragon's Dogma 2, the Pathfinder is a strange character visible only to the Arisen, and at first glance, the Pathfinder seems to be this world's Seneschal, especially considering his looks, powers, and grandeur demeanor. However, once you finish the game and work your way towards the true ending, it is quickly revealed that the Pathfinder has no desire to hand over his position to the Arisen, instead doing everything in his might to keep the Arisen, the world's citizens, and the cycle in their proper places of fate. Upon my first playthrough, I thought that the Pathfinder was simply a Seneschal that did not wish to relinquish his power, but this theory is almost certainly overridden by the existence of Rothos. Towards the end of the Arisen's journey, they will speak to a mad fisherman, who himself is likely a former Arisen, before exploring the Seafloor Shrine. There they will meet the angry spirit of Rothos, the Mad Sovereign. It was this beastren that originally formed the nation of Vermund. It is this king whose beheaded statues can be found across the lands, and it is this man who is not very happy to see you upon your arrival. As we find out, Rothos is another former Arisen who refused to play the Pathfinder's game, and for this, the Pathfinder would continue to guide the newly made Arisens on their quest to slay the dragon and replace Rothos, but all were slain by the powerful Sovereign. Yet here is where something really strange happens. Having still not slain the dragon, you are not yet supposed to meet the Sovereign, and because of this, you have no idea who this king is, nor have you any desire to slay him. Upon learning this, Rothos grants the Arisen a piece of his soul, the dulled God's Bane blade. That's right, although we can't know for sure yet, it seems that Rothos is the Seneschal, or at least some kind of related position, and the Pathfinder is instead some higher being controlling the world's fate. So what does this mean for the world and the power of will? Well, for those who have completed the true ending of Dragon's Dogma 2, we know that the Pathfinder is bent on keeping the Arisen confined within the cycle and becoming sovereign, proving himself to be a greater force than the Seneschal. However, due to the existence of the Seafloor Temple, it seems that the Pathfinder was displeased with the former Arisen's breaking of the cycle, choosing to bury the former world within the ocean and the brine. Strange as it may seem, the brine itself seems to have a huge connection to the power of Wheel. As many have said before, because the player of the first game is still affected by the brine after becoming Seneschal, some fans have theorized that the brine is even more powerful than the Seneschal. Well, according to quotes from the developers, what was once simply an in-game mechanic and oversight soon became a major part of Dragon's Dogma 2's lore. That's right, lore fans, through the sheer power of Wheel, you have transformed a simple game mechanic into established story. But now, back to the Pathfinder and the end of the world. After the player refuses the Pathfinder's story, choosing instead to slay both themselves and the dragon and plunging themselves into the brine, the Pathfinder releases chaos and unleashes the unmoored world. In this eerie world laid bare, the oceans are pulled away, monsters infest the surface, and portals and clouds of brine literally eat the world away. However, notice the design of the unmoored world. Red clouds, red portals, red tentacled monsters, just like the red worm-life crystals dropped from the dragons, just like the red eyes of dragons' plague-infested pawns, just like the red magic of the Arisen's friends conjured by the Pathfinder. At the end of the unmoored world, the Pathfinder unleashes the ultimate dragon, seemingly an incarnation of the brine, to finally destroy and reset the world. As the player struggles to stop this, the Pathfinder reveals that there have been endless worlds before the Dragon's Dogma cycle, all of them consumed by the chaos of oblivion, and it was the Great Wheel, some unspecified force, that decided to put an end to this chaos by giving the world a story, the cycle of Arisen and dragons, where every character would be restrained to their fate within its tail. The Pathfinder seeks to return this cycle with the brine-empowered, red-glowing dragon, but when all seems lost, our dragon-possessed pawn, empowered by the will of the player, creates an opening in the great dragon's heart. Casting off their role as a mere vessel, the main pawn reveals that Wheel is power, the means to shape the world as one desires. After their sacrifice, the player succeeds in driving the Godsbane through this dragon's heart, freeing the world from the Pathfinder's grip. Obviously, there is more to discuss than one video can cover, especially concerning the Pathfinder, but this video will focus on the power that truly governs the world of Dragon's Dogma, Wheel. Growing the power of self-will by overcoming challenges and defying expectations has always been a key theme of Dragon's Dogma's story, and the same goes for its cosmology. According to the Seneschal, Pathfinder, and the main pawn, it is Wheel that gives existence, function, and power. It is by Wheel that the Seneschal and Pathfinder shape and govern the world. And let's pay special attention to two elements: the colors of red and blue, and the Pathfinder's mention of the so-called Great Wheel. The Pathfinder reveals that there had been many worlds before the cycle of the dragon, but each one faded away into oblivion. So the Great Wheel, notice the lowercase title, created the Dragon's Dogma to give the world purpose, a beginning and an end. While it at first may seem like the brine is some external entity that the Pathfinder keeps away with the cycle, the nature of the unmoored world and the monsters made to destroy it seem to indicate that the brine is not an alien deity, but rather destructive willpower incarnate. Look at the Seneschal and Pathfinder's powers, look at the glow of the portals and rift stones. Note the blue power shaping the rift. Now look at the brine, the worm-life crystals, the monsters formed of the brine. Note the rift become red. Wheel is the power to govern and shape the world, and the powers of creation and the brine are not separate forces, but rather different spectrums of the same wheel, blue for creation, red for destruction. Wheel is not just a metaphor for personal drive, it is the literal sentience and consciousness that shapes the existing world into the desired form and function. The implications for this are nearly endless, but let's take a look at three prominent examples: Godsway, the Great Wheel, and the future of Dragon's Dogma. In the player's journey into Batal, they discover that Godsway, a powerful crystal capable of controlling pawns, is actually the crystallized souls of past Arisens. Due to the Godsway's proximity to the shore, these Godsway crystals likely seem to belong to the many Arisens who challenged and died to Rothos. Phaeacius tried to use the power of Godsway to control the dragon, and though this failed, it shows that even mortals outside of the Arisen dragon cycle can use the power of Wheel to influence the world around them. Now, what about the Great Wheel? This force is what created the Dragon's Dogma, and yet it is not capitalized in its title. Obviously, with will being almost synonymous with sentience, with intent, this force could not be unconscious. But the simple lack of capitalization implies that it is either a force or even a group, rather than just another bigger fish to add to the Seneschal Pathfinder scale. Could this be a hint that there are other figures like the Pathfinder who learned to shape will? Is the Pathfinder but one of a group of watching ones? Could this be something similar to the old gods hinted at in Dragon's Dogma 1? The Pathfinder may have been stopped, but the force of will continues to hold sway over the world, ready to be harnessed by whatever being has the willpower to grow and seize it for themselves. And that about does it for today's video. Now obviously, Dragon's Dogma 2 is still a relatively new game, and new information and new theories may continue to flow and change our opinions on the game and its world, but it is my hope that the content and points I have made will lead us to dig deeper into the lore of Dragon's Dogma and its potential. What do you think about will? Who or what was the Great Wheel? Are there other godlike beings like the Pathfinder who use the power of will? Could other beings follow in the footsteps of Phaeacius and use willpower from the Arisen or Pathfinder remains to make their own changes? Leave your thoughts in the comment section below, and remember to drop a like and subscribe so my channel can grow. Feel free to comment what you would like to see next, new videos regularly. God bless!